The whole good protester versus bad protester thing needs to die. Hey, you guys. So, as you can see, I have a much more serious tone this time around because um, this video I will be talking about police brutality, the mistreatment of Black people in this country. I'm going to talk about nice white people slash non-Black people who take part in Black culture but don't respect ways that we can help out if you don't go to protest, ways that you can help out if you have money, ways to help out if you don't have money, and all that good stuff. So yeah. So if you don't live underneath a rock, then you should be well aware of the death of George Floyd, killed by Officer Derek Chauvin and 3 other officers. An autopsy came out saying that he had pre-existing conditions, but obviously that's BS because we saw this man kneeling on George Floyd's neck for 8 to 9 minutes, and it's all over the internet. Obviously, this is a cover-up to protect the police, but it's like situations like this happen all the time. They've been happening for so many years, like way before I was born, way before my parents were born. And situations like this are the reason why Black people always say that we don't feel like we can trust the legal system because it lets us down and we feel like it's rigged against us. We've been beaten, we've been raped, we've been lynched, we've been shot, we've been attacked, we've been pushed out, we've been discriminated against since the beginning of America. Literally since this country is founded on racism, and it's been built on the back of people of color, Black people, and our hard work. And we feel like we don't matter, period. And it's really weird when people try to say, oh, I don't like Black Lives Matter because I feel like it's only talking about Black life. And then they try to come back with all lives matter. But if all lives really mattered to you, then you would have no problem saying hashtag Black Lives Matter. You'd have no problem posting out whatsoever. Or putting all Black Lives Matter so that you can include Black trans people and Black queer people in that statement as well. And by the way, if you want to raise awareness, you can raise awareness without showing dead bodies or people being shot, anything violent like that, because it's triggering and it's traumatizing. And trust me, we've seen enough of that in our lifetime on social media. We don't need that. Okay, which brings me to the nice white people thing. Because I grew up in Western Washington, and there are people who will really just deny that Black people go through anything similar to what they see on the news because we don't live in the South, or we don't live in the area where that's happening. But guess what? That happens in the state too. You just aren't aware of it, at all. And I just feel like I have white people in my life, but those white people are in my life because they do the work. They do the internalized work. They don't project their problems onto me. They don't project their problems onto other people. They speak up when people say racist stuff. They do the work. And so it has me confused, why other people can't do that. Or other white people, or other people who are not Black. The whole good protester versus bad protester thing needs to die. Because people who bring up things like looting and rioting, I feel like they're completely disregarding the fact there are undercover cops called agent provocateurs who literally show up and stir stuff up and set people up so other officers can come in and start, doing what they usually do. If you're more worried about people looting and stealing than you are about what the actual problem is, then you are the problem. If you try to silence others around you while they talk about their issues or the problems that they've been through, you are the problem. I've had old friends just growing up, so many experiences with people trying to call me a victim, people trying to dismiss what I said, people basically bullying me for how I look, being Nigerian, all these things. So I know that these things happen. So when you talk about these things with Black people open their mouths to tell you these things or tell you about these experiences, don't go behind their backs and talk to a mutual friend and say that they are basically making a big deal out of nothing because everyone loves to follow Black trends. And so they should be happy and not sad about the injustice going on in the world, and that they should not be uncomfortable with non-Black people saying the N-word. Literally, what's wrong with you? It's really disturbing and really crazy that the same people who fight to say the N-word and rap songs just because it's a rap song, and then like really sit there and claim that they're not racist. It's really weird that people who fetishize black men and black women, it's really weird that people who wear protective styles, non-black people who wear protective styles as festival looks and just continue to try to appropriate black culture and dismiss black people. It's just weird because why do you like black culture so much but don't respect or care for black people? You're sitting here claiming that you're not racist, so this is your time to shine. Come through. Like, literally, like, walk the walk, don't just talk the talk. And during the first half of my college experience, I was heavily involved with the BSU. We put together events where we did a lot of public speaking, and it was meant to educate people around us and just open up to have like a level playing field where we could all sit there and talk about things that affect us on our day to day life. If you are in college or in high school and your school has a BSU or whatever, I highly suggest that you either consider joining one or just showing up to an event whenever campuses open up again and really just like sitting down and listen and immerse yourself in that space. Because honestly, it's life changing and it's really valuable. I feel like everyone in that group were really bonded over the fact that we were so sick and tired of the injustice going on in the world. And I feel like everyone went hard because all of them, like, they had childhoods like me where they were picked on for how they looked. They were picked on for being black. They were picked on for having these voices, having these opinions, and people were literally trying to silence us. I don't know about you, but I don't want to grow up in the world where I have to worry about my little sister enduring the same things. I don't want to live in a world where I have to worry about my future kids who are not even born yet dealing with these things. I don't want to sit here and wonder if my loved one is going to be next, if I'm going to be next. That's not okay. The fact that there are people who have that privilege or have the opportunity to not live like that, if they're not sitting here thinking, what I wanted to say here is if they're not thinking about using their privilege to help other people, then what are you doing? So I just feel like the experiences that I had growing up, they made me really sit down at a very young age, and it turned my mindset into, okay, I want to be that friend that I needed growing up. I want to be that person that I needed growing up. Not saying that I didn't have support from my parents, because I did, but it just sucks when like people are going in on you, like gaslighting you basically. Like, I did have good friends that stood up for me every now and then, but I couldn't depend on them to always be there and speak for me. Like, I had to speak up for myself. What I was trying to say here is basically thinking about being that person that I needed, that made me want to take charge and help and protect other people. It basically put me in a position to where there are times where I would almost get into a fight because I would try stopping fights or I would stand up for someone and I wouldn't even stop to think about how this person was bigger than me. I would just put myself out there and try to help them because I knew it was right. A black person will speak up and defend themselves. Like, they shouldn't always have the burden of having to defend themselves because no one else can speak up or no one else wants to speak up. And on top of that, I feel like people who don't care about the movement or don't care about black people, they're not going to listen to us. Whatever old school type of thinking that they have or whatever stereotype they have in their mind, whatever, we don't matter to them. They don't care what we have to say. I've talked to white people who've literally told me that growing up they've had racist family members and that these were things that were pushed onto them and that they were taught. Okay, but that being said, though, there are also white people who grew up in predominantly non-white areas that learn firsthand that they have privilege and that their friends of color, they experience different things than them and that sympathize with their friends who didn't sit there and tell them to be quiet because they're making a big deal out of something. They actually sat there and listened. And that was like basically like my man. Like when we first started dating, I remember talking to him about stuff like this just to see how he thought about things like that. And he was right there with me. Quite honestly, like, he does the work. He calls out people who say messed up things. He doesn't let little microaggressions slide, honestly. And so I really appreciate that about him. But with that being said, it's just kind of like when people like that exist, it's kind of just like there is no excuse to be ignorant whatsoever. Okay, I'm done rambling. Back to the video. And so, really, there is no excuse. There is no reason to be like, oh, I don't know. These people talked about how they literally had to unlearn a lot of the racist behavior, unlearn a lot of the things that they were taught growing up, and basically, like, open themselves and teach themselves. Because you shouldn't always just depend on a person to like teach these things for you, because Google is free. I feel like I said that before, but I have to say it again if I didn't say it already. Google is free. Speaking of doing internalized work, I've had to do internalized work as well as a Black person. Black people do internalized work like every day. In fact, a lot of us start from a young age, especially if you're a female and queer.
I say this because at that point, especially for me, like, you're experiencing racism, homophobia, and sexism, or maybe just like racism and homophobia. And then you start to think about our Black trans brothers and sisters and what they're going through. For example, Marsha P. Johnson. Hello, like, you really can't say that you are pro-Black or that you are for Black Lives Matter if you are not for our Black trans brothers and sisters. I'm sorry, but it's true. I don't make the rules.
My parents, they immigrated from Nigeria at different times to the States. And growing up, my parents, when they would try to remind me of how fortunate I was, they would always sit there and talk about how I was lucky to be born to parents who worked so hard to provide a good life for me and my siblings. They would talk about the discrimination they faced because of their accents, because of the fact that they weren't born in the States. And
my parents were both college graduates. My father went to an HBCU, and that's a historically Black college. And my parents both stressed the fact that they wanted my siblings and I to reach for the sky. And they always reminded us that they are people who fought for our rights. So basically, they fought for our right to do whatever we wanted to live our best life. And so knowing that, I applied that to all aspects in my life.
P.S. I've had the cops called on me like twice. Actually, no, I've had the cops called on me like one time because there are robberies going on in my neighborhood. My parents, they make more money than most people in my neighborhood because they are in the top 2%. Yet, because of how I look, they thought I was suspicious. And then on top of that, there was another time where an ex-boyfriend and I were literally just parked in my neighborhood and the cop approached us thinking that we were on suspicious behavior when really we were just chilling in the car. Growing up, I was always really aware that my life could be harder. And so since I was able to realize those things at a really young age, it's just really puzzling to me why white people or non-Black people can't come to that same conclusion and be like, okay, other people have it harder than me. What can I do to help those people? What can I do to make this community better? What can I do to help others? Like, how can I use my privilege to help other people? And so you're probably wondering, what are you doing? What can I do? And when I say I mean you. So, I have this amazing link in my description below. And basically, it has all these resources. It tells you who you can text, who you can call, funds that you can donate to, petitions that you can sign. It has resources for protesters, so that's amazing. On top of that, I'm going to include videos. They're collecting the ad revenue and they're donating and they're giving back to the Black Lives Matter movement. And so these are just like a few things you can do on top of just being vocal and using the platform that you have to spread awareness and share these resources and share these links. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys sticking all the way through, sticking it out throughout this whole video. All lives will matter until all Black lives matter. See you guys next time.